Hmm. Disney movies were most of our first experiences with fairy tales, and when it comes to their princess stories, we know they can sometimes be lame, which isn't a bad thing. Who doesn't love a happily ever after, right? We love rooting for the princesses to escape their stepmothers. What if we told you the original stories from which Disney was inspired were actually not so happy? We've got a list of some pretty messed up origin stories. Before we dive in, be sure to hit that subscribe button to stay up to date with all the latest screen rant videos. And can you guess what future film these movies are showing? Find out at the end. Rapunzel, probably associated Rapunzel's story with Disney's Tangled, which tells the story of a beautiful princess with long blonde hair that has magical qualities and lives locked in a tower, courtesy of Mother Gothel, who kidnapped her as a baby. She meets a bandit who she escapes with, they have some adventures, fall in love, and end up living happily ever after. But the original story is a lot different. Rapunzel's parents were farmers who basically stole Gothel. When they were caught, her father agreed that in exchange they would give up his child when his wife gave birth. She was named Rapunzel after the plant, and when she was 12, Gothel locked her in a tower, and the only way to get to her was by climbing her long hair. The prince strolls by and hears her singing. Sneaks up one day. After a brief introduction and a proposal, she decides to marry him. But Rapunzel is caught, gets her hair chopped off, and is banished to the desert. When the prince returns for her, he finds Gothel instead. She throws him out the window and ends up with thorns in his eyes and blinded. He roams around and eventually finds Rapunzel and now has twins. Tears giving back his sight, they return to his kingdom. Wow, it's been a really good salad. Little Mermaid. Disney's version of Little Mermaid, meaning the smoky redhead Ariel, becomes a main part of the school's world. She falls in love with a human, Prince Eric, and does everything in her 16-year-old power to be his love. She seeks out the sea witch Ursula and exchanges her voice for some legs so that she can go use her charms and dingle hoppers to make Eric fall for her. Ursula ends up playing some shady games, but don't worry, her love conquered her, and they defeated her with a boat right in the gut for an unfortunate soul. Prince Eric and Ariel lived happily ever after, completely sweet wedding and awesome rain. But in the original Hans Christian Andersen version, the outcome is so solid. Part of the agreement is that her legs will feel as if she were walking on broken glass. Sad, right? Well, Eric ends up marrying someone else, and Ariel throws herself in the ocean and becomes sea foam. Very upset because we can't even right now. Ariel's crying face is sad enough. Can you imagine her turning into sad sea foam? Cinderella. The classic rags to riches story about a young girl forced into servitude by her evil stepmother is one that Disney turned into a wonderful classic. Cinderella sings about dreams, love, and maintains a positive attitude through most of the abuse. Her only friends are cute birds, invented mice, and an adorable dog. It doesn't seem all that bad when her little bird friends helping her get dressed in the morning. And after she meets her fairy godmother, things get better as she attends the ball with some fabulous and practical shoes. We're not here to judge. Anyway, we all know how it ends. She loses the shoe, Prince goes on a search, finds her, marries her, and they live happily ever after. But the Brothers Grimm did not tell the story as adorable. In this version, one of her stepsisters ends up with her toes cut off, and the other saws off her heels so that she can fit into the tiny glass slipper. Little doves alert the prince that there is blood on the shoe and discovers that Cinderella is the true owner. Once they realize Cinderella is to be queen, they try to win her favor and attend the wedding, only to have their eyes pecked out by birds. Pretty gruesome, don't you think?
Of course. You said so yourself. Once upon a dream.
Sleeping Beauty. Disney's Sleeping Beauty is one of the most beautifully animated films. It also has one of the sweetest ballads ever. Once Upon a Dream will forever be associated with romantic love. He finds Rapunzel, who now has twins. Her tears give him back his sight. It also has one of the sweetest ballads ever. Once Upon a Dream will forever be associated with romantic waltzing in the forest. The sweet worthy Prince Philip can dance, is dedicated, determined, and willing to go up against a massive dragon just to prove his love for King Briar Rose, aka Princess Aurora. Again, we have adorable woodland creatures, magic, and happy ever afters. Of course, the duel between Pink and Blue. The original tale of Sleeping Beauty is much more horrifying. A king wanders by Sleeping Beauty's castle, and when no one answers his knocks, he climbs through the window. Here, he finds a beautiful and unconscious princess. So naturally, Creep decides to violate her and leaves. She only wakes up after giving birth to twins. She makes her way to the palace and they fall in love. That wasn't cringy enough, he is married to someone else already. She tries to have one of the twins killed and burn the princess at the stake. Luckily, she fails. The king and princess get married and live happily ever after. And to that, we say,
Use their imagination.
Well, it's about time you got your head out of those books and paid attention to more important things.
Beauty and the Beast. Disney's Beauty and the Beast resonated with audiences not just because the tale is old as time, but because it's a beautiful love story that transcends appearances and prejudice. We love how Belle loves to read and stays true to herself, even when her town makes fun of her for being weird. And who doesn't love the character arc that is ghostly? It's so endearing, right? Belle and Beast both grow as people and learn from one another, but most importantly, it gave us major envy of that gifted library that Belle gets. And let's not forget the beautiful animation in the film. The original story by Gabriel Suzanne Barbeau de Villeneuve is followed pretty accurately by Disney, except for a few changes. Belle actually has two evil sisters, as per usual when it comes to these things. Beast actually allows Belle to travel home and visit her family, as long as she promises to only be gone for a week. But when she shows up with some pretty nice threads, her sisters become jealous and convince her to stay longer, with the hopes that it will drive the Beast mad and will devour Belle. Don't worry, Belle makes it out safe and sound. Snow White. Disney's first animated feature film is the 1937 film Snow White. Snow White was known for being the fairest in the land, so much so in fact that her evil stepmother wanted to be dead. Families are pretty dark in these stories, aren't they? Even when they're Disney fun. But what if we told you that the original Brothers Grimm tale wasn't full of cute furry animals that helped you clean? Or adorable dwarves? We know it's hard to imagine any other version, but in the original story, the queen is even more twisted. She asks the huntsman to kill her and bring her back her lungs and liver. Instead, he brings back a boar's wings. She eats them, thinking they're Snow White's. Gross much? When Snow is placed in a glass coffin after being poisoned, a handsome prince passed by and fell in love. So, of course, he asked to take her away and give her a proper funeral, which is pretty odd if you ask us. But thanks to this gesture, the people carrying her coffin trip, causing the apple to dislodge from Snow's throat. She then marries the prince and lives happily ever after. The evil queen is invited to the wedding, where she is forced to wear burning hot iron shoes and dance until she dies.
There's so much we can teach you. We've improved the lives of savages all over the world.
Savages?
Pocahontas. One of the great Disney films of the 90s is Pocahontas. Like any good Disney cartoon, there is a beautiful young lady who falls in love with a handsome stranger. Pocahontas is the chief's daughter, who is in touch with the beauty of nature. Her best friend is a raccoon, and she gets guidance from a tree. Her love for the Englishman John Smith almost starts a war between two peoples. But if you look once more around the river bend, you'll realize that this film is historically inaccurate. Pocahontas was actually a nickname, meaning playful one. Her real name was Matuaka. When the English arrived in Jamestown, Pocahontas was about 11 years old. John Smith was captured by Powhatan's brother, and according to Smith, his head was about to be smashed when Pocahontas rushed in and saved him. A couple years later, she was captured and held for ransom. She was violated and consequently impregnated. She was forced to convert to Christianity and was married off to John Rolfe to legitimize her pregnancy. She was a captive who wanted to help and protect her people. She lived a very short life and died at the age of 21. Details of how it all went down are not fully certain, but it was definitely not a happy ending for her.
Look, this tattoo will protect me from harm.
Mulan. Disney's Mulan was a story of a young woman who took her father's place in the war. Her selfless act and bravery led them to win the war and save all of China. Now, we know Mulan technically isn't a princess, but come on, she saved China and was totally selfless. That's pretty much royalty in our book. She was also friends with the talking dragon. The story of Mulan came about because China was suffering an invasion during the 4th and 5th centuries. Warriors needed a source of hope, and Mulan became that inspiration. Her story is described in the poem Ballad of Flying Lot. There's no proof that she was a real person, but her heroic actions inspired many. The legend of Mulan has been written with many variations. The plot remains the same. She heard the army was recruiting, and in order to save her ailing father, she disguised herself in his place. She fought for 12 years, gained high merit, but refused any reward. She only stated when she returned home, she discovered her father had passed away and was haunted by experiences in the battlefield. So she decided to take her own life. We enjoyed the liberties that Disney took by making it a little more joyous.
Well, no wonder the kiss did not work. You lied to me.
I never said I was.
The Princess and the Frog. Perhaps Disney's last 2D animated film. Who now has twins. Her tears give him back his sight. On hold when her path crossed with Frog Prince Naveen. He mistakes her for a princess and plans a kiss on Tiana, except it doesn't work in either of their favors because she also gets turned into a frog. The two set off on an adventure to try and prepare things. Along with a trumpet-playing alligator named Louise, a firefly named Ray, and a voodoo woman named Mama Odie, and their love for each other, they were able to return to their human selves. This whole movie is based very loosely on the Brothers Grimm story, The Frog Prince. The original version had the Frog Prince being thrown against the wall to break the spell. An even more violent version says that she has to cut the frog head off. We'll definitely go with the smooch instead.
What did I ever do to you? No, why? Why do you shut me out? Why do you shut the world out? What are you so afraid of?
Frozen. Frozen is a heartwarming story about true love and self-acceptance. It follows sisters Anna and Elsa as they rediscover their sisterhood. They are two independent princesses who don't need no man, just an adorable snowman. But despite all the goodness, there's little resemblance to the original fairy tale, Snow Queen by Hans Christian Andersen. In that story, there's a troll with a mirror that reflects the worst in a person who looks into it. It ends up shattering splinters and spreading out everywhere. One day, friends Kai and Gerda are out playing, and Kai ends up with a shard in his heart, which changes him for the worst. He ends up being lured away by the Snow Queen while on his sled, and Greta sets out on a quest to rescue him and thaw his frozen heart. Sound a bit familiar? Gerda finds out that the key to saving Kai is her sweet and innocent child heart. Much like Anna in Frozen, she arrives at the palace and finds Kai, assembling shards of ice to form the word eternity. If he succeeds, the Snow Queen will release him. Gerda kisses him and breaks the spell. As they dance around, the shards bounce around and spell eternity. They return home safe and sound. Wow, those are some messed up origin stories. What did you think? Are there any that we might have missed? Are there any that shocked you? Let us know in the comments below. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to Screen Rant for more videos just like this one. But before we go, here is the answer to the emoji quiz. Did you get it? Let us know. Thanks for watching. This is a thinker who helps us understand why our lives and relationships are full of so much confusion and pain. He tells us why life is hard and how to cope. His own life incurred a lot of anxieties. Sigmund Shlomo Freud was born to a middle-class Jewish family in 1856. His professional life was not an immediate success. As a medical student, he dissected hundreds of eels in an unsuccessful attempt to locate their reproductive organs. He promoted cocaine as a medical drug, but it turned out to be a dangerous and addictive idea. A few years later, he founded the discipline that would ultimately make his name, a new psychological medicine he called psychoanalysis. The landmark study was his 1900 book, The Interpretation of Dreams. Many others followed. Despite his success, he was often unhappy. During some particularly strenuous research, he recorded, "The chief patient I am preoccupied with is myself."
He was convinced he would die between 61 and 62 and had great phobias about those numbers, although he actually died much later, at the age of 83. Perhaps because of his frustrations, Freud achieved a series of deep insights into the sources of human unhappiness. He proposed that we are all driven by the pleasure principle, which inclines us towards easy physical and emotional rewards, and away from unpleasant things like drudgery and discipline. As infants, we are guided more or less solely according to the pleasure principle, Freud argued. But it will, if adhered to without constraints, lead us to dangerous, reckless things like never doing any work, or eating too much, or most notoriously, trying to sleep with members of our own family. We need to adjust to what Freud called the reality principle. Though we all have to bow to this reality principle, Freud believed that there were better or worse kinds of adaptations. He called the troublesome ones neuroses. Neuroses are the result of faulty negotiations with, or in Freud's language, repression of the pleasure principle. Freud described a conflict between three parts of our minds: the id, driven by the pleasure principle, and the superego, driven by a desire to follow the rules and do the right thing according to society, and the ego, which has to somehow accommodate between the other two. To understand more about these dynamics, Freud urges to think back to the origins of our neuroses in childhood. As we grow up, we go through what Freud termed the oral phase, where we deal with all the feelings around ingestion and eating. If our parents aren't careful, we might pick up all kinds of neuroses here. We might take pleasure in refusing food, or turn to food to calm ourselves down, or hate the idea of depending on anyone else for food. Then comes the anal phase, which is closely aligned with what we now call potty training. During this period, our parents tell us what to do and when to go. At this phase, we begin to learn about testing the limits of authority. Again, if things go wrong here, if we don't feel that authority is benign enough, we might, for example, choose to withhold out of defiance. Then, as adults, we might become anally retentive, in other words, not able to give or to surrender. Next comes the phallic phase, which goes on until about the age of 6. Freud shocked his contemporaries by insisting that little children have sexual feelings. Moreover, in the phallic phase, children direct their sexual impulses towards their parents, the most immediately available and gratifying people around. Freud famously described what he called the Oedipus complex, where we are unconsciously predisposed towards being in love with the one parent and hating the other. What is complex is that no matter how much our parents love us, they cannot extend this to sexual life and will always have to have another life with a partner. This makes our young selves feel dangerously jealous and angry, and also ashamed and guilty about this anger. The complex provides a huge amount of internalized worry for a small child. Ultimately, most of us experience some form of confusion around our parents that later ties into our ideas of love. Mum and Dad may both give us love, but they often mix it with disturbed behavior. Yet because we love them, we remain loyal to them and also to their bizarre destructive patterns. For example, if our mother is cold, we will be apt nevertheless to long for her, and as a result, however, we may be prone to always associate love with a certain distance. Naturally, the result is very difficult in adult relationships. Often the kind of love we learned from mum and dad means we can't fuse sex and love, because the people we learned about love from are also those we were blocked from having sex with. We might find that the more in love with someone we are, the harder it becomes to make love to them. This can reach a pitch of crisis after a few years of marriage and some kids. Freud compared the issues we so often have with intimacy to hedgehogs in the winter. They need to cuddle for warmth, but they also can't come too close because they're prickly. There's no easy solution. Freud says we can't make ourselves fully rational, and we can't change society either. In his 1930 book, Civilization and Its Discontents, Freud wrote that society provides us with many things, but it does this by imposing heavy dictates upon us, insisting that we sleep with only a few, usually one other person, imposing the incest taboo, requiring us to put off all our immediate desires, demanding that we follow authority and work to make money. Society themselves are neurotic. That is how they function. And that's why there are constant wars and other political troubles. Freud attempted to invent a treatment for our many neuroses. He called it psychoanalysis. He thought that with a little proper analysis, people could uncover what ails them and better adjust to the difficulties of reality. In In his sessions, he analyzed a number of key things. He looked at people's dreams, which he saw as expressions of wish fulfillments. He also looked at parapraxes, or slips of the tongue. We now call these revealing mistakes Freudian slips, like when we write thigh when we wanted to write though. He also liked to think about jokes. He believed that jokes often help us make fun of something symbolic, like death or marriage, and thus relieve some of our anxiety about these topics. There's a temptation to say that Freud just made everything up, and life isn't quite so hard as he makes it out to be. But then one morning we find ourselves filled with inexplicable anger towards our partner, or running high with unrelenting anxiety on the train to work, and we're reminded all over again just how elusive, difficult, and Freudian our mental workings actually are. We could still reject his work, of course, but as Freud said, no one who disdains the key will ever be able to unlock the door. We could all use a bit more of Freud's ideas to help us unpick ourselves.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm looking for that type of stuff.
Oh, there it is. Good.
I'm sure a lot of people on the ground level this. But it's done, it is over with, it's in the past, and I will tell you about it. So, I mean, that's the last one.
Hey, sus. Michael here. Fear gives us life. Being afraid of the right things kept our ancestors alive. It makes sense to be afraid of poisonous insects or hungry tigers. But what about fear when there is no clear and obvious danger? For instance, a teddy bear with a full set of human teeth, or a smile.jpg. There's something a little off about these images, too much mystery and strangeness, but no obvious threat the way there is with a gun or a falling rock, but yet they still incite fear because they are creepy. But why? What gives us the creeps? What causes something to be creepy? We are now in my bedroom I grew up in Kansas. Like a lot of children my age, I was terrified of scary stories to tell in the dark. But the very first book that ever scared me was The Curse of the Squirrel. To this day, I still haven't finished the book. That's just me. Psychologist James Geer developed the Fear Survey Schedule 2, which he used to find out what scared us the most. Combined with the results of a recent Gallup poll, these are the things that scare most of us the most. All of these things are scary, but are they creepy? Let's get more specific. I love the way Stephen King delineates 3 types of scary stuff. The first is the gross out. This is something disgusting, morbid, diseased. The second is horror. Horror to King is the unnatural, a giant spider, or being grabbed in the dark when you thought you were alone. The third, terror, is different, creepier. He says terror is coming home to find that everything that you own has been replaced with an exact copy. Terror is feeling something behind you, its breath on your neck, knowing that you will be grabbed, but then turning around to find that there was never anything there in the first place. Not a lot of research has been done on that feeling, the creeps, but many theories and ideas involve vagueness, ambiguity. For instance, masks and why clowns are creepy. Claude Lévi-Strauss wrote that the facial disguise temporarily eliminates from social intercourse the part of the body which reveals personal feelings and attitudes. Part of the reason even a neutral or happy mask can be creepy may have to do with ambiguity. A mask hides the true emotions and intentions of the person underneath. I don't know if the person wearing that mask is a threat or not. Vagueness is creepy when it comes to the human form. This is the famous uncanny valley. On a chart of humanness, there's a zone where something can be almost entirely human, but off by just a little. Not so wrong that it's clearly fake or funny, or so good that it's indistinguishable. Instead, it's just troubling. The creepiness of the uncanny valley is wonderfully demonstrated by John Bergeron's Singing Androids. Watch these videos when you're alone. A similar uneasy feeling comes from Shay St. John, a character created by Eric Fournier, funny to some, nightmare fuel to others. Uncanny humanoids, like all creepy things, straddle a line between two regions that we can understand and explain with language. Francis T. McAndrew and Sarah Cohnke describe being creeped out as an adaptive human response to the ambiguity of threats from others. Creepy things are kind of a threat, maybe, but they're also kind of not. So our brains don't know what to do. Some parts respond with fear, while other parts don't, and they don't know why. So instead of achieving a typical fear response, horror, we simply feel uneasy, terror, creeped out. Between the mountains of safety and danger, there is a valley of creepiness where the limits of our knowledge and trust and security aren't very clear. Will looking at this cause you to die 1 week later? Impossible, right? Maybe that's the terror of ambiguity. We don't do well with ambiguity. When it involves our own intentions, it can make us lie. And when it involves danger but no recognizable threat, it can make us think and feel some pretty weird things. Have you ever peered over a ledge, a railing, way high up, like so high up it made you nervous and dizzy, and felt something pushing you? Maybe even an urge to jump. Have you ever stood on a ledge with a loved one and realized that you could push them? It would be that easy. You really could do it. And maybe you do want to do it. Or maybe it's just cognitive dissonance. The fact that your brain is having to deal with ambiguity. A recent study by Jennifer Hames at Florida State University dubbed this the high place phenomenon. When approaching a ledge and a dangerous drop, your survival instinct kicks in and you pull yourself away. But your balance and motor systems don't get it. Nothing is pushing you, and you don't normally fall or leap randomly. So what's going on? The part of your brain that processes intention might resolve this by determining that something must be pushing you, or that you might actually want to jump or push your friend, even if none of that is true. Now, we're not done with ambiguity yet because our language reflects the gray area of terror and creepiness. Take a look at the word terror itself. We have horrible and horrific, terrible and terrific. Why is that? Well, through history, we never really figured out what to call powerful experiences because they're both. They are full of awe, awesome, and they are full of awe, awful. We need them to survive. We need fears and the creeps to understand our size, our weaknesses. But on the other hand, avoiding them is pretty great too. The creeps is a physical reminder that the world is vague and full of ambiguity, but that we are cunning, always trying to figure things out, but nonetheless fragile. Is that terrible or terrific? Well, it's both, which, as a creepy ghost would say, is kind of boom. And as always, thanks for watching.
Between what should be their body. Babies frequently spit out without concern, and they do not find Question.